Welcome back to the channel. If you love stories of ultimate justice and brilliant strategy, subscribe right now. Don't forget to like this video to fuel more content like this. The buzz of betrayal. It wasn't a sound, it was a vibration. The 2:17 a.m. notification was the faint buzz of a mosquito's wing against the Carrara marble of the bedside table. In the suffocating, climate-controlled silence of their Tribeca penthouse, New York City, Alexandra Alex Sterling lay wide awake. 6 months pregnant, she watched the second burner phone, the one her husband, Marcus Thorne, CEO of Thorne Private Capital, claimed was only for his European clients. Illuminate. The screen was black, but the text preview glowed with poisonous intimacy. Sienna, the Ritz, 9 p.m. Don't be late. In that instant, the expensive silence of her life, bought with a $50 million condo on Billionaires Row, became a tomb. For the last 3 years, Alex had considered this silence peace. Now, it felt like a vacuum stealing the air from her lungs. The golden cage. Alex moved into her cavernous walk-in closet, a space larger than her entire first apartment in Boston. On one side, Marcus's custom-tailored suits, Brunello Cucinelli, Savile Row, stood like a disciplined army. Her own wardrobe, a vibrant collection of haute couture he had personally selected, faced his. A stunning explosion of Dior and Chanel. He called her his exotic bird, and this was her golden cage. She gently touched her 6-month pregnant belly. This child, his heir, was supposed to be the final, perfect piece of their perfect life. But the joy had curdled into a cold, heavy knot in her stomach. The betrayal hadn't arrived suddenly. It was a slow poison that seeped into the foundation of their marriage. Office nights that bled into mornings. Urgent business trips that left him faintly smelling of a perfume that wasn't hers. Portrait of a Lady by Frédéric Malle. Too sophisticated. Too deliberate. The way he guarded his phone. Once open, now a dark secret. Marcus was a creature of habit and towering arrogance. That combination, Alex realized, would be his undoing. He believed he was too clever to be caught, and that she was too docile, too in love, to even suspect. The awakening of the strategist. The calendar notification was a mistake, a hilariously amateur error for a man of his stature. Sienna, the Ritz, 9 p.m. The name was elegant, expensive. Alex's first instinct was to scream, to shatter the placid surface of their lives. But a deeper, colder instinct took hold, an instinct she thought she'd buried forever. Before she was Alexandra Thorne, society wife and aspiring philanthropist, she was Alexandra Alex Ruiz, one of Washington, D.C.'s most ruthless opposition researchers. Her job wasn't accounting. It was dismantling. She tracked real money, dark money, exposing the rot buried under layers of complex agreements. She found the offshore account that ended a senator's career. She had given it all up for Marcus, exhausted and tired of the fight. He promised her a life of peace. Now, looking at that glowing screen, she realized her old life hadn't died. It had merely been dormant. That night, she didn't sleep. She retrieved her encrypted laptop, a relic Marcus found endearingly paranoid, and started to dig. Not into his phone, but into his money. Money never lay. His finances were an impenetrable maze of shell corporations and offshore trusts. For anyone else, yes. For Alex, it was a language she spoke fluently. His biggest weapon, his supreme arrogance, was now hers. He never imagined she possessed the skill to truly understand, much less navigate, the system he'd created. Before we get into the details of her investigation, comment your thoughts below. If you were Alex, would you expose him publicly right away, or plan a private revenge? Share your strategy. The blueprint of destruction. For weeks, Alex spent her nights mapping his empire while he slept or dined with his mistress. A ghost in the machine, she traced wire transfers, analyzed credit card statements, and cross-referenced expense reports. Sienna LaRue. The name appeared repeatedly. A condo in Miami, paid for by a Gibraltar SLU, linked directly to Marcus. A Black Centurion Amex card, accumulating charges at high-end hotels globally. Flights mirroring his own, but always one row behind. He wasn't just having an affair. He was funding a parallel life. The pain was immense, but the strategist in her was detached. The pain was data. It drove her. Then came the real catalyst. Last Tuesday, Marcus was in his home office skiff, a soundproof room for delicate negotiations. Alex was passing by when she heard his voice, sharp and stripped of its charm. The prenuptial agreement is ironclad, Kenji. She walks away with $1 million. That's it. Kenji Tanaka, Marcus's famously ruthless attorney. Alex froze. Her blood turned to ice. But the pregnancy complicates things, Marcus continued, his tone like flint. The optics are awful. We can't have a messy public divorce. So we control the narrative. We build a case, unstable, hormonal, emotionally erratic. We'll order a psychological evaluation. We'll prove she is an unfit mother. Unfit mother. The phrase hit her like a physical blow. He was going to take her son. Once we have the leverage of the child, she'll fold. Kenji's voice drawled through the speaker. She'll accept the deal and disappear. Supervised visits, twice a year. Alex bit down on her hand to stifle the sob of incandescent rage. He wasn't just planning to leave her. He was planning to erase her and use her child as a weapon. In that moment, the heartbroken wife died. The strategist was reborn, armed with a mother's fury. He wanted to leave her with nothing. She would leave him with less. Operation Bonaparte. Alex went to her office and locked the door. This was no longer about heartbreak. This was war. She opened Marcus's financial maps. She saw the load-bearing walls, the pressure points, the keystone holding up the great arch of his fortune. She needed an ally, her brother, David Ruiz. The family's black sheep, a cybersecurity genius who saw the world in code. He'd always hated Marcus, calling him a charismatic sociopath. She texted a single message to the burner phone's only saved number. Operation Bonaparte. Are you in? A childhood code for an audacious high-stakes plan. The answer arrived in less than 30 seconds. For you, Caro, I'd burn the internet. Send coordinates. The target date. 2 weeks later, when Marcus was scheduled to fly to his secluded villa in the Hamptons for a solo wellness retreat. The flight records showed a second ticket. He and Sienna would be sleeping. Alex would be working. For 14 days, Alex played the devoted, glowing pregnant wife. She feigned cravings, discussed nursery colors, and smiled warmly every time Marcus touched her stomach. Every smile was a lie. She methodically gathered the vital keys, security protocols for private banking portals in Geneva and the Cayman Islands, the specific vocal authentication phrases for his Swiss broker, and the seed phrases for his crypto cold storage, which she found on a USB stick hidden inside a hollowed-out copy of Machiavelli's The Prince. The irony was delicious. David set up a chain of VPNs and prepared her clean slate package. A new identity, Anna Millen, a Portuguese passport, and a network of untraceable bank accounts. He was her digital ghost maker. The night before Marcus left, he gave her a gift, a ridiculously large diamond necklace, for the most beautiful mother-to-be in the world. Alex let him clasp it around her neck. "I'll miss you," she whispered, meeting his gaze in the mirror. The woman in the reflection was a stranger, a serene smile, and eyes as cold as the diamonds on her throat. The demolition Marcus's jet departed Teterboro at 10:05 p.m. Alex watched the icon move slowly across the flight tracker until it became a speck over the Atlantic. She walked to the silent, opulent walk-in closet and unclasped the diamond necklace. She didn't return it to its velvet box. She dropped it onto the thick carpet. It was a shackle. She wouldn't wear it anymore. Her war room was the home office. The battle would last approximately 8 hours. The window between Marcus falling asleep mid-flight and his private bank in Geneva opening for business. She initiated a secure, end-to-end encrypted call to David. Phase 1, you green? Green across the board, David confirmed. I'm inside the Thorn Capital network infrastructure now. He left the key under the mat. The smart home integration. I can monitor every data packet. If a silent alarm triggers, I'll kill it before it even thinks about dialing. The strategy was a cascade, designed for velocity and devastation. She would initiate a synchronized, multi-front financial collapse. Target 1. Brokerage accounts. Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs. To access the accounts, she needed the 2FA code sent to Marcus's primary phone, now 35,000 feet in the air, set to airplane mode. David, I'm logging into Morgan Stanley. I need you to intercept the 2FA. Ready now. Click. Sent. Got it, David had said. A tense 4-second pause. The code is 7934S92. Access granted. Alex didn't liquidate everything at once. That would trigger alerts. Instead, she initiated a series of strategically blocked trades. Highly liquid blue-chip positions were sold in carefully spaced transactions, immediately converting to cash. The critical step, moving the money. She funneled the funds through 3 of Marcus's own forgotten shell corporations that she had silently taken control of before finally landing the cash in its ultimate destination. A new corporate account in a Liechtenstein private bank, under the name Helvetia Strategic Solutions, an entity controlled by Anna Millen. She repeated the exact process with the Goldman Sachs account. The numbers in the Liechtenstein account climbed at an astonishing rate. Target 2. Offshore strongholds. Pictet Group, Geneva. This was the most difficult. Pictet required vocal authentication. You need to give me your best, Marcus, David said, a trace of dark humor in his voice. Alex was ready. She'd spent weeks synthesizing a passable voice print. She dialed Pictet's private banking hotline. And now for vocal authentication. Please state the phrase, "The mountain air is the clearest." Alex clicked a button. The digitally recreated voice of Marcus Thorn stated the phrase. A long, agonizing silence followed. Verification successful, the banker stated. How may we direct your funds, Mr. Thorn? Alex quickly dictated transfer instructions, moving the $200 million balance to the same Liechtenstein account. Target 3. The Apocalypse Insurance. The cold storage crypto. David guided her through it. Bitcoin, Ethereum, all transferred to a single, anonymous wallet. Value, $80 million. Final target, the insult. 6 a.m. Her window was closing. She logged into their joint checking account. Balance, $7,256. She emptied it to the last cent. Then she paused. She allowed herself a grim smile. She initiated one final transfer, a deposit into the same joint account. Exactly $100. She leaned back, her body shaking. Final tally, over $600 million liquidated and transferred. It's done. Phase 1 is complete, David whispered. Jesus, Caro, I'm looking at the logs. It's a digital guillotine. You didn't just steal him blind. You erased him. Phase 2, she said. The data, Marcus's internal server. It contained his entire life, including the hidden, encrypted partition labeled contingency, his blackmail folder. I'm initiating the transfer to the secure cloud, David confirmed. Once finished, I'll wipe the source drive. Department of Defense level sanitation. Not a bite will survive. As the data flowed, Alex moved through the house. She took no luxury item, no jewelry, no art. She packed one simple suitcase, the burner phones, her new passport, the crypto ledger, and the tools of the life she would live after. She walked into the master bath and retrieved the positive pregnancy test from the drawer. She placed it gently on his pillow. Her phone buzzed. David's message. Download complete. Wiping drive now. You have to leave, Caro. Now. Alex descended the grand staircase for the last time. In the foyer, she stopped. She took the house key from her purse and placed it on the marble table beneath their wedding portrait. Then she walked out the front door, leaving it unlocked. Her undetectable rental car, reserved under a false name, was waiting at the end of the long driveway. The sun was rising. It was the first day of her new life, and the last day of Marcus Thorne's. He just didn't know it yet. The collapse, Marcus Thorne woke to the voice of a silky smooth flight attendant offering a hot towel as they descended into the Hamptons. He felt invincible. The first hint of trouble was subtle. As he settled into the plush car, he pulled out his Amex Centurion to tip the concierge. "My apologies, Mr. Thorne," the man said politely. "It's been declined." Marcus stared. Declined. Impossible. Try again. Same result. He pulled out another card. A J.P. Morgan Reserve. Declined. Sienna watched, a touch of concern on her face. "Everything all right, darling?" "It's nothing," Marcus snapped. Something cold had settled under his skin. He spent the ride home checking his banking apps. "Invalid credentials. Please contact customer service." When he finally reached his private banker at Morgan Stanley, the voice on the other end was tight and formal. "Miguel, I was expecting your call." "David, what the hell is going on?" Marcus snapped. "Mr. Thorne," the banker said clinically, "a full liquidation of your portfolio was initiated approximately at 11 p.m. last night. All assets were converted to cash and wired out. As of 3:45 a.m. this morning, your account balance with us is zero. Zero." The word tasted strange. "The same pattern was detected at Goldman," David said quietly. "And I've just received alerts from Geneva and the Cayman Islands. Your offshore accounts have been emptied." Marcus's phone slipped from his fingers. This wasn't a hack. This was surgical. This was personal. "Alex, no, impossible. Sweet, docile Alex." He called Kenji Tanaka. "Kenji, it's gone. All of it." "It has to be her," Marcus whispered. "She had a life before me. Opposition research. Forensics." Kenji's breath caught. "Jesus Christ, Marcus. That's not a side hustle. That's a weapon." Hours later, Kenji called back from the penthouse. "I'm in the penthouse, Marcus. The police are here. There is no forced entry. But she is gone. The server in the basement has been wiped. Professionally. Whatever was on it, Marcus, is gone. Or rather, someone else has it now." "And in the bedroom?" Marcus choked out. "She left something on your pillow." Kenji paused. A positive pregnancy test. A message. She wasn't just taking the money. She was taking his son. His heir. "Find her," Marcus hissed, his voice venomous. "I don't care what it costs. Use everything. I want Alexandra Ruiz found." The hunt had begun, but Alexandra Ruiz no longer existed. The aftermath. Justice is served 1 week later. A woman named Anna Millen, visibly pregnant, stepped off a train in Lisbon, Portugal. Her bright hair was cut and dyed a mousy brown. She checked into a modest, prepaid apartment overlooking the Tagus River. That night, she received an encrypted message from David. "They're good, Caro. Kenji's team is sharp. They tracked the money flow. They found the Liechtenstein account. They're moving to freeze it. Anna Millen, a.k.a. Alex Ruiz allowed a small, cold smile to touch her lips. She typed her reply. "I know. I hoped they would. How much was in it when they froze it?" David's answer, "About $5 million. Anna sipped her herbal tea. "Good. That was the bait. The rest is already in cold storage and gold bullion, in a vault in Zurich. Let them keep the 5 million. It's their finder's fee. She didn't stop there. She opened her new encrypted laptop and the 800-gigabyte contingency file. She didn't send it to the press. That was messy. Her way was surgical. She anonymized a single file. Proof of Marcus's specific insider trading on a recent corporate deal. She sent it to the SEC's dedicated whistleblower portal. She took another file. Proof of a Spanish senator's long-term affair, financed by a Thorn Capital slush fund. She sent it directly to the senator's wife, a woman known for being far more ruthless than her husband. And finally, she sent the files detailing Marcus's plans to leverage his own partners out of the new fund, anonymously, to the partners themselves. She closed the laptop. The storm had been unleashed. It wasn't about the money. It was about ensuring that man could never again use his power to threaten her or her child. Final significant ending. 3 months later, Ana Millan sat on a small balcony in Lisbon, the bright Portuguese sun warming her face. She held her newborn son, Leo. She was reading the international news on her tablet. Marcus Thorn, indicted on multiple counts of securities fraud. Senator. Redacted. Quietly resigns, citing family matters. Thorn Capital Partners. Files for bankruptcy after internal coup. She looked down at the sleeping baby in her arms. "It's just us now, little one," she whispered. It was never about revenge. It was about resilience. It was about reclaiming the dignity he had tried to take from her. She had been a victim. She became a survivor. Now, at last, she was free. Call to action. What do you think of Alex's plan? Do you believe Marcus Thorn will get what he deserves in court? If Alex's story of reclaiming her power with sheer intelligence resonated with you, please like and share this tale with someone who needs a reminder of their own strength. Leave a comment below. What do you think was Marcus's biggest mistake? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of justice and second chances. The Hunter and the Ghost. Operation Bonaparte, Phase 3. Did you love Part 1? Make sure you've hit subscribe and like this video to catch the moment Marcus finally finds his ghost, the fury of the fallen king. It was not the $600 million loss that truly broke Marcus Thorn. It was the utter humiliation. He was a king stripped naked in the public square. His company, his reputation, his leverage, all gone, thanks to the woman he dismissed as docile. Marcus was now marooned in a rented apartment in Miami, a pale, sweat-soaked echo of the titan who once commanded Wall Street. His remaining wealth was tied up in legal fees and dwindling assets. He was out on bail, facing multiple federal charges, but all of that was secondary. His singular obsession was Leo, his son, and the woman who had dared to take him. "I need her located, Kenji," Marcus snarled into the phone, his voice raw. "Forget the money. Forget the charges. I want a trace on the child." Kenji Tanaka, now Marcus's only remaining link to power, looked exhausted. "We hit a brick wall, Marcus. Ana Millan is a perfect ghost. The passport is real, issued through legitimate channels in Portugal. The financial trail of the $5 million she left behind was a dead end. It bounced through 10 different countries before dissolving." "What about the crypto?" Marcus demanded. "Untraceable. She didn't use a centralized exchange. She used David Ruiz, the brother. The kid's a genius, Marcus. He erased the ledger and used multiple mixers. That money is locked in cold storage, probably offshore." Marcus slammed his fist on the glass desk. "I don't care about David. I care about Alex. She made a mistake. Everyone makes a mistake. She has a tell. Find it." "What do you think is Alex's tell? What is the one thing Marcus knows about her that he could use against her? Leave your thoughts in the comments below." The thin thread. Marcus remembered a conversation from years ago, early in their courtship. Alex had mentioned a deep, almost religious connection to the Geronimos Monastery in Lisbon, a place her mother had always dreamed of visiting. A place of quiet contemplation, she'd called it. Sentimental nonsense, he'd thought then. Now, it was the thinnest, most desperate thread he had left. "Kenji," Marcus said, a manic clarity in his voice. "I want a private investigator on the ground in Lisbon. Someone subtle. They need to canvass 3 places: the waterfront area, the Geronimos Monastery, and the neighborhood surrounding the University of Lisbon. Check the local nurseries, the high-end organic markets." She was always obsessed with that. It was a shot in the dark, based on emotional residue and old habits, but it was the only shot he had. The quiet life. 3 months passed. Anna Milan had settled into a quiet rhythm. She had enrolled in online university courses, embracing the intellectual challenges of her old life. Leo was thriving. The money she'd secured meant she didn't have to work, allowing her to devote herself fully to her son. Yet, Alex was never truly at peace. Every time a shadow passed the window or a phone rang with an unknown number, the strategist in her tensed. She knew Marcus wasn't the type to simply disappear. He would hunt. One Tuesday morning, Alex was pushing Leo in a stroller near the Jardim da Estrela, a beautiful, peaceful park. She was distracted, reviewing an article on her tablet about Marcus's impending arraignment. Suddenly, a tall, nondescript man with sharp eyes, holding a local newspaper, walked past her and muttered a single, chilling word in English: "Ruiz." Alex's heart seized. She didn't look up. She didn't slow down. She continued pushing the stroller, her hands steady, her mind racing. He found me. The PI was good. He hadn't confronted her. He had simply planted the seed of fear, confirming his presence. Alex immediately initiated her pre-planned emergency protocol. She needed to move, and she needed David. The trap is sprung. Alex found a secure internet connection at a small cafe and sent a coded message to David. "Caro, the bird is flying. Initiating Project Phoenix." Project Phoenix was the financial and physical escape plan she had designed if Marcus ever got too close. It involved a staged withdrawal of a large sum of money from her new Portuguese bank account to create a false trail. David replied within minutes. "Got it. Setting fire to the digital forest now. The safe house is prepped. But Caro, he's going to come for you. He won't use the law anymore. He'll use muscle." Alex knew this was true. Marcus didn't want justice. He wanted his property back. 2 days later, she staged her disappearance perfectly. She left her apartment door slightly ajar, a half-packed suitcase visible, and her laptop open to a flight booking for Iceland. She wanted to project panic and immediate flight. She didn't go to the airport. She went to the only safe house David trusted, a remote, almost forgotten family cabin high in the Picos de Europa mountains in northern Spain, a place so cut off from the modern world that a secure VPN connection was virtually impossible. The final showdown, Marcus and 2 heavy-set men, retained through a sketchy contact in his old hedge fund days, landed in Lisbon less than 24 hours after Alex's staged escape. The PI led them straight to the empty apartment. When Marcus saw the flight screen open to Reykjavik, a triumphant grin spread across his face. "Idiot! She thinks she can hide in the Arctic." They took the first flight to Iceland. Marcus was so consumed by his rage and certainty that he never checked the apartment for a second trail. Meanwhile, Alex and Leo were settled into the freezing, but beautiful, Spanish cabin. The isolation was a relief, but also a prison. 3 days later, David called. "Marcus is in Iceland, searching," he whispered over the secure line. But one of his goons did something stupid. He left a financial trail on a cash withdrawal in Santander, Spain, before leaving for the airport. Marcus has to be back in Spain. He figured out the Iceland thing was a ruse. "He's coming," Alex murmured, rocking Leo gently. Caro, you have to leave now. He's close. I think he's heading for the Picos. Alex's breath hitched. Only David knew about this place. Marcus must have tortured the information out of Kenji or someone else in the old circle. I can't leave now, Alex whispered. The nearest town is 2 hours away, and I have Leo. Then you have to be ready, David pleaded. Alex hung up. She looked around the rugged, ancient cabin. There was no running away left. She was an opposition researcher, a dismantler. It was time to build a final trap. She quickly moved a heavy wooden chest across the front door. She took the car keys and tossed them into the deep, frozen well outside the cabin. She pulled a single item from her suitcase, not a weapon, but the USB drive containing Marcus's entire contingency file. The price of arrogance. It was nearly midnight when a set of headlights cut through the swirling snow. 2 vehicles, Marcus and his muscle. Alex stood in the cold kitchen, holding Leo close in a carrier against her chest. She took a deep breath, her maternal terror hardening into steel. Marcus walked up to the cabin door, kicking it violently. Alex, I know you're in there! Give me my son! The door groaned but held. It's over, Marcus, Alex shouted back. You lost. All your power is gone. I still have the power to take what's mine, he yelled. Give me Leo and I'll let you go, with your $1 million and your pathetic dignity. Fight me, and I'll have you declared insane, and you will never see him again. Alex walked to the window and placed her hand on the glass. You see this USB drive, Marcus? She called out, holding the little black stick up to the light. This is your life. Every secret, every corrupt politician, every offshore account. It's all right here. Marcus froze. He knew the drive was the real power. What do you want? I want you to leave, right now. You never contact me or Leo again. You plead guilty to your fraud charges, and you tell everyone I was the unstable one. The story ends with me getting nothing. And if I refuse? If you refuse, I press a button on this encrypted terminal, she said, tapping the keys of her laptop. And every newspaper in the world gets every single file. You won't just go to prison, Marcus. You'll go to solitary for the rest of your life. Marcus looked from the USB drive to the locked door, his face contorting in pure, impotent fury. He was cornered. He had lost. The powerful Marcus Thorne had been outsmarted by a woman he underestimated. He spat on the ground. This isn't over, Alex. It is, she said softly, but loud enough for him to hear. I took your empire, Marcus. You taught me how. And now, you'll never see your son again. He turned and got into the car, his 2 hired thugs following. The sound of the engine fading into the snowy, silent mountains was the sweetest sound Alex had ever heard. The meaningful conclusion. Alex and Leo stayed in the cabin for another week before David came for them. Marcus Thorne was arrested 2 days later when he returned to his lawyer's office, the legal process having finally caught up to him. He never mentioned the USB drive again. 2 years later, Alex had officially changed her name to Anna Milan. She and Leo lived a comfortable, quiet life in a small town in southern France. Marcus was serving a significant sentence in a high-security prison. Holding Leo's hand as they walked through a sun-drenched market, Alex didn't regret the price she paid for her freedom. She looked at her son, a symbol of the strength she found when everything was taken away. The true lesson of the Golden Cage wasn't that money corrupts, but that the power of love and self-respect is the only fortress a person truly needs. Call to action. That was intense. Did Alex make the right call in the final confrontation? Tell us your favorite part of Operation Bonaparte in the comments. Like this video and subscribe to join our community for more thrilling tales of justice. The Phoenix Rises. An epilogue on new beginnings. Thank you so much for following Operation Bonaparte. This is the final chapter, but the story is far from over. Show your love for Alex by hitting like and subscribing for the next thrilling series. The Quiet After the Storm. 5 years after the dramatic showdown in the Picos de Europa, The name Marcus Thorne was barely a whisper in the financial world. He was serving a 15-year sentence in a minimum security facility in upstate New York, a broken man whose only occasional victory was winning a game of chess in the prison yard. He had been stripped of everything: his assets, his reputation, and his right to appeal for custody of his son, Leo. Meanwhile, Anna Millan and Leo were flourishing in San Sebastian, Spain. Alex had chosen this vibrant coastal city for its perfect blend of sophistication and relative anonymity. She had reinvested a significant portion of the secured funds into a diverse, low-risk portfolio managed by a discreet wealth firm in Zurich. She was financially secure for life, but Alex was not content to merely exist. The 5 years had been a journey of transformation. She shed the last remnants of the fearful, trapped wife. The ruthless strategist had merged with a calm, deeply intelligent woman focused on ethical investment and motherhood. The launch of the lighthouse, Alex decided to use her unique skills, the forensic accounting combined with opposition research, for good. She launched a private, highly secretive consulting firm named The Lighthouse. Its mission: to help whistleblowers and victims of white-collar crime navigate the complex financial mazes created by powerful figures like Marcus. She never took a salary. The firm was funded by the interest from her own reserves, operating purely to expose corruption. David Ruiz was her silent technical partner, continuing to run interference from his loft in Barcelona, now a celebrated white-hat hacker focused on digital defense. One crisp autumn morning, David called. "Caro, I have a new file for the Lighthouse. You won't believe this. It's an acquisition target from Thorne Capital, Marcus's old firm. They're trying to hide the money through the same kind of Gibraltar shell you used years ago." Alex, now sitting in a sunlit office overlooking La Concha Bay, smiled faintly. Poor corporate security. They never learn, do they? Send it over, David. Let's shine a light on them. If you had the power to run a firm like the Lighthouse, what kind of corruption would you focus on dismantling first? Political bribery or financial fraud? Let us know in the comments. The final loose end, the only remaining loose end, was Sienna LaRue, the former mistress. Alex had long since moved past the anger, viewing Sienna as merely a symptom of Marcus's ego. But one day, while scrolling through a list of new clients referred to the Lighthouse, a name jumped out. Sienna LaRue. Alex hesitated for only a second before accepting the secure call. Sienna's face appeared on the screen, drawn, tired, and aged far beyond her years. "Ms. Milan, I know you won't believe me, but I didn't know about the baby, or the prenup. He always told me he was going to leave her eventually." Sienna's voice cracked. "He took everything from me too." Sienna explained that Marcus had used her identity, and her own small inheritance, to purchase a lavish condo, which was immediately seized by the U.S. government as part of his forfeited assets. She was left penniless and facing legal trouble for tax evasion linked to his schemes. Alex listened patiently. "Sienna," Alex said, her voice calm and firm, "I can't undo the government's seizures, but I can help you untangle your name from his corporate fraud. The Lighthouse will take your case pro bono. Not for you, but because Marcus Thorne must not be allowed to leave any victims behind." The look of profound gratitude on Sienna's face was all the closure Alex needed. It was not vengeance that brought peace, but the choice to stop the cycle of victimization. An enduring legacy. One evening, Alex was tucking Leo, now a bright, curious 6-year-old, into bed. He looked up at her with Marcus's piercing blue eyes, but with a kindness that was all her own. "Mommy?" Leo asked. "Why did we move here, away from New York?" Alex smiled, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Because, my love, sometimes people build beautiful, but very fragile, cages. And we are not meant to be caged, we are meant to be free." She touched the scar of a memory, the 2:17 a.m. buzz of the burner phone. It had been the catalyst for the greatest battle of her life, a battle that she won not with physical strength, but with her formidable intellect and the fierce, protective love of a mother. Alexandra Sterling had been trapped by love. Anna Millen was liberated by knowledge. The greatest treasure she had stolen from Marcus Thorne was not the $600 million, but the power of her own mind. That was the true and enduring legacy of Operation Bonaparte. Thank you for reading the final chapter of Operation Bonaparte. If this story of justice and female empowerment inspired you, please like this video, share it, and comment below with your biggest takeaway. Don't forget to subscribe for more unforgettable stories. Stop what you're doing right now. This is the story of a woman who traded a life of betrayed luxury for an honest struggle, only to have her past, and the spitting image of her ex-husband, walk right into her path 6 years later. He wants the truth. She built her world on silence. If you believe a woman's strength can rebuild anything, hit that like button. Your likes fuel our channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the human heart. 6 years later, the ghost of the past. San Francisco vibrated that afternoon, as it rarely did. The sky, a dense blue, seemed to press down on the city's old Victorian rooftops with a light that felt almost solid. The narrow, curving streets, like unresolved memories, echoed with the sound of hurried footsteps from tourists and locals. Voices mingled in different languages. Laughter, camera clicks, distant cable car bells, and in the middle of this history-saturated scene was Ethan Cole. He walked aimlessly, his shoulders rigid, his hands shoved into the pockets of his gray coat, his brow slightly furrowed. His phone vibrated in his trousers, but he didn't pull it out. Not today. It was the anniversary of his divorce. 6 years exactly since he signed those papers with black ink and cold hands. Not that he counted, but he knew. His body knew. He had allowed himself a walk through the North Beach district purely out of instinct, or perhaps as a form of self-punishment. He had avoided these streets since Clara left, since her name became a kind of ghost, whispering through the windows of the empty house. But something that afternoon brought him back. Maybe it was the smell of autumn, maybe the silence behind the noise, or simply the weight of a loneliness that no longer surprised him. He slowly walked up Lombard Street. His eyes scanned curved glass storefronts, moss-covered stone walls, children running with ice cream dripping from their fingers. He stopped in front of a used bookstore, pulled out an old copy of Kerouac, and flipped through it without reading. The paper smelled of time. The poetry, if it still lived there, no longer touched him. It was then that everything stopped. Not time, but something inside him. An invisible force rotated his face to the side, as if a silent hand pushed his chin, and he saw, there, a few yards away, walking in the opposite direction, was her. Clara. The name formed in his mind with the weight of a contained blow. She hadn't seen him yet. She walked distractedly, holding the hand of a boy who must have been fetos, maybe 6. The boy looked around with a serene curiosity, his brow slightly furrowed, his body leaning to one side, as if trying to absorb the world. Ethan felt his knees buckle an inch. The boy was his portrait, not a vague or generic resemblance. It was him, those intense brown eyes, too large for his face, that slightly arched brow, like someone carrying questions he doesn't yet know how to ask. The firm chin, the way he walked, hands loose, sure-footed, the slight forward tilt of his neck, as if he were always listening for what wasn't being said. Clara looked to the side and saw him. There was no fear, no gasp, no flight. She simply stopped for a second, her eyes locked onto his with a mute, undecipherable force. It wasn't anger, nor fear. It was something more solid. A wall of silence between two worlds that once loved each other and now looked at each other as strangers. Ethan took a step. His heart hammered so loudly he felt his temples throb. He opened his mouth. The word was about to come out, but the air seemed to fail. "Clara?" He tried, but the voice didn't reach his lips. She squeezed the boy's hand more firmly, looked away, and began to walk. Not fast, not hurried, but with an irreversible decision, like someone closing a door without making a sound. Ethan wanted to run. He wanted to shout. He wanted to call the boy by a name he didn't even know. But his legs wouldn't obey. They were nailed to the ground, like the roots of a rotten tree. Everything inside him screamed, but his body refused to react. The crowd swelled. Tourists in colorful hats, students with backpacks, a couple laughing loudly, a dog barking. And in seconds, she was gone, vanished like smoke in the middle of the street. He searched with his eyes everywhere. He spun his body. He looked desperately, but there was no sign, neither of the woman, nor of the boy. Nothing. Only the echo of a life he didn't know existed. He leaned against a stone wall, trying to breathe. His chest hurt, not like a heart attack, but as if someone had opened his ribs with bare hands and ripped something out from within. He was cold and sweaty. His hands trembled. He tried to rationalize. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe the boy just looked like him. Kids look alike. It wasn't a certainty. But then he remembered the eyes. Those brown eyes, identical to his own at the same age. And there was no way to pretend. Ethan Cole, renowned architect, son of one of the most influential families in California real estate. He was stopped in the middle of the street like any ordinary man, facing an old wound that never healed, and that was now bleeding again. Deeper, uglier, realer. A man who had everything, then lost everything, and now discovered that perhaps he had never known anything. The city continued around him as if nothing had happened, because to the world, truly, nothing happened. Just another man standing in front of a bookstore, just another pale face in the crowd, just another story no one saw happen. But for him, right there, in that instant, reality had cracked, and through that crack, he saw something he couldn't unsee. Before the crack, the betrayal, 6 years earlier. Before the crack, before the silence, before Mateo. There was a woman trying to hold together what was already collapsing. Clara would get up early, make coffee, set the table with 2 mugs, even when he left without touching either. Trying was the verb she conjugated most often alone in those days. Trying to smile, trying to talk, trying to get Ethan to look at her the same way he looked at his projects of glass and concrete, with fascination and attention, but his eyes had become foreign maps. There was no path left, only walls. Ethan came home late, always smelling of cigarette smoke and boredom. He said he was overloaded with the new bid, with the firm, with his father's pressure. But Clara knew he was overloading himself with his own coldness. She felt like someone noticing a roof leak, that something in their house was crumbling inside. That morning, a fine rain tapped against the glass windows of their house in the Marina district. Clara looked at her reflection in the mirror. Sunken eyes, dry mouth, a trace of forgotten makeup beneath her chin. She decided not to cry. She showered. She pulled her hair into a hasty bun. She grabbed a coat, and she left. She carried a bag with freshly baked turnovers and an envelope. Inside, a small, symbolic gift. A sketch of the project they designed together in their first month of marriage, on tracing paper. They never built it, but Clara kept it. It was more than a draft. It was memory. It was roots. I'm going to the firm. I'm going to surprise him. She said it aloud, to no one, perhaps to convince herself. She took the subway, got off at Civic Center Plaza, and walked to the commercial building where the architecture firm, Cole & Associates, was located. She climbed 3 flights of stairs, each one slower than the last. Her heart wasn't beating fast. It was shrinking. Each step felt like a question. The hallway was silent. The main door was ajar. She could have knocked, but she pushed the door with her fingers and slowly walked in. Her voice was the first thing, low, husky, laughing. If we keep this up, we're going to end up designing the wrong kind of bed, she said, amidst muffled laughter. Then, the image. She saw Ethan sitting at the drafting table, amidst papers and rulers, his shirt half open, the secretary's fingers between the buttons. She saw the 2 of them close, laughing, with their eyes closed. She saw her hand sliding down his neck, as if it already knew the way. She saw the body that was once hers, belonging to another presence, and something in her broke. But silently, Clara did not scream. She did not run. She did not slam the door shut. She did not throw the envelope to the floor. She simply backed away, as if the scene before her were a slow-motion fire, as if looking too long meant letting the smell of betrayal soak into her skin. She walked down the 3 flights of stairs with chilling dignity, the bag of turnovers still in her hand. The envelope remained. She walked out of the building like someone leaving a burning house, but on the outside, she was intact. Inside, there was no roof left, nor floor. She hailed a taxi and didn't look back. That night, Ethan came home as usual. Late, exhausted, without looking at her. He found a cold dinner on the table and a letter on the plate. 3 lines. I don't want explanations. I want distance. I want a divorce. She wasn't in the bedroom, nor the bathroom, nor the house. Ethan might not have understood at first. Perhaps he thought it was a bluff, a crisis, a whim. But she didn't return. The next day, Clara's lawyer called. 2 days later, the separation papers were filed. And for the first time in years, Ethan perceived the silence. Not the silence of someone's absence, but the silence of someone who never returns. Interactive question. Clara made a split-second decision to walk away without confronting Ethan. Do you think her silent exit showed ultimate strength, or was it a missed opportunity for her to speak her truth and defend herself? Share your thoughts in the comments. The secret. Mateo. The news arrived without warning. On a soft, late spring day. A missed period. A strange feeling in her body. A sharp intuition. She bought a drugstore test and waited alone in the bathroom of the house she had shared with Ethan. The 2 lines appeared with cruel speed, unmistakably. The answer was there. She was not alone. She never would be again. She sat on the cold tile floor, the test between her fingers, her legs bent, her heart trying to organize its own beats. She should have cried. She didn't. She touched her flat stomach with the palm of her hand and whispered, without knowing why. You came. The news could have been light, but an old shadow covered everything. A memory flashed in her mind. Clear. Direct. Threatening. If you ever get pregnant and we split, I will take that child from you. The Coles have power. Never forget that. He had said that one night during an argument, long before the betrayal, when fighting already replaced intimacy, when she dared to say she dreamed of children. And he, with the coldness of one who knows the weight of the family name, cut the dream in half with that dry, unshakable sentence. At the time, Clara laughed. She thought it was an exaggeration. But now, with those 2 lines on the test, the phrase resonated with a different gravity. It was a threat, and more. It was the memory of the man he truly was. She spent the following days in silence. She left the house only for appointments, always at off-peak hours. She avoided friends, neighbors, even her family. Her small belly could still be hidden. But the fear grew. She knew what the Coles were capable of. She knew about the power of Ethan's father, his connections with judges, his political influence, the way they silenced scandals and manipulated court decisions. She had heard stories. She had seen it happen to her cousin, who lost custody of her son for being emotionally unstable. Instability, in that case, meant trying to leave a sick marriage. Then she understood. She could not stay. The decision came one sleepless night. Sitting on the edge of the bed, her hands clutching the pillow to her chest. She took stock. She had little money saved. A gold bracelet her grandmother had left her. Some clothes, and the instinct to protect that little heart, beating inside her. She called her mother. In Oakland. She didn't explain much. She just said, I need to leave. Today? Just the 2 of us. Can you? There was silence on the other end. Then, a brief answer. Yes. She packed in an hour. Few clothes, documents, the pregnancy test hidden between the pages of a poetry book. She left the house before sunrise, called a taxi. She didn't look back. The apartment, once a home, was now an empty shell. Every corner still had his scent, and she could no longer bear that expensive perfume, which hid so much venom. She reached the terminal with a racing pulse, bought a one-way ticket. Boarding the bus, she sat near the window. Wrapped in her coat, like an improvised armor. She looked out. As the vehicle pulled away, the streets of San Francisco slowly faded. Every street lamp, a memory left behind. She arrived in Oakland shortly after noon. Her mother was at the door. She hugged her without asking questions, without demanding explanations. Just hugged her, tightly, silent, present. Clara cried. Finally, a muffled cry. No scandalous tears. It was more a release than a desperation. In the first few days, she didn't leave the room. She slept a lot. Or little. She spent hours with her hand on her belly, trying to imagine a future she couldn't quite see. Her mother cooked for two, spoke little. It was as if she knew that silence could also be a hug. When she finally spoke, it was a Sunday. "Do you want to tell him?" Clara took a long time to answer. Then she shook her head. "No, I can't. He's the father. He's the danger." Her mother didn't insist. The rebuilding. Clara Aranda. The weeks turned into months. Her belly grew. Along with it, her strength. Clara found a small technical drawing course offered by a local NGO. She started attending. Then she got an internship at a modest architecture studio with a kind, widowed architect who taught her more than any university. There, she wasn't the ex-wife of the coal heir. She was just Clara. Talented, thirsty to start over. The pregnancy was difficult. Nausea, low blood pressure, insomnia. But she resisted. Every beat of the baby's heart was a reminder that she was alive, that choosing to flee was choosing to live. Mateo was born on a hot September afternoon. The labor was long, and when she finally held him in her arms, everything around her silenced. There was no pain, no fear, only him. His eyes opened, brown, immense, and they looked at her as if they already knew her. Clara smiled. "You really came." That night, she wrote a single sentence in her diary. "From now on, everything is for him," and she kept her word. From the day she first held Mateo in her arms, Clara never wavered again. Not because there was no fear. It existed. Pulsating, sleepless nights, and uncertain afternoons. But she learned to use fear as fuel. Every step, every achievement, was taken with the firm hands of one who carries her own world in her lap. Mateo grew up surrounded by affection. There were no luxuries, but there was solid ground. There was no powerful surname, but there was a clean, honest name. Clara learned to make lentil soup in silence, to deal with night fevers without panicking, to tell stories of enchanted worlds, while her own eyes were red from exhaustion. At first, she lived with her mother in a small apartment on the second floor of an old building in the Piedmont Avenue neighborhood. The room she shared with her son had peeling paint, but the windows overlooked a sky that seemed to understand her silent prayers. When Mateo turned 2, she got a spot for him in the municipal daycare. Clara started working full-time at the same studio where she had interned, now as a project assistant. 3 years later, she received a partial scholarship to an architecture college. At night, she would sit in the tiny living room and sketch freehand while Mateo slept. The lines she drew were no longer just facades or structures. They were maps of her survival. She had learned to transform absence into foundation, pain into concrete. Everything that once broke her was now part of what held her up. She excelled. Professors saw something unusual in her, a rare blend of technical precision and contained emotion. She designed houses that seemed to understand people's emptiness. She chased every missed class. She did assignments while washing dishes. She studied during pediatrician appointments. She read at the edge of the bed, while Mateo asked for one more minute before sleeping. She earned a full scholarship in the 3rd semester. Then, her first paid internship. And with that, she rented a small apartment just for them. 2 rooms, a narrow hallway, a balcony where she planted basil and lavender. She never told anyone about Ethan. Her college classmates imagined she was widowed. Some thought she was a single mother by choice. Clara didn't correct them. She didn't lie. But she didn't give anything away either. She kept that part of her story like someone carefully holding broken glass, cautious not to cut her fingers. For Mateo's birthdays, she baked simple cakes and filled the apartment with recycled balloons. In the photos, only the 2 of them. Mother and son. A silent portrait of everything she had built without fanfare, without help, without surnames. Sometimes, she dreamed of him. Not Ethan, but the child Mateo could have been if he had grown up with his father's presence. In some dreams, he ran in a huge garden taking 2 hands. In others, he said, "Mom, why didn't he come?" And Clara would wake up sweating, swallowing a guilt she wasn't sure was justified. But she never doubted. She never let the decision to have fled slip into regret. She knew what she had done. She knew why she had done it. And she knew that by doing it, she not only saved herself, but also saved her son from growing up in the shadow of a name that never meant protection. At the age of 5, Mateo first asked, "Mom, why don't I have a dad?" Clara knelt, held his face between her hands, and replied, "Because you have me, and I never left you." Mateo didn't answer. He just leaned his head on her shoulder, and in that hug, Clara understood that love was also a language spoken with presence. In her final year of college, she presented her thesis, a social housing project focused on single mothers. The jury was silent for a few seconds after the presentation. Then they applauded. Her advisor hugged her with teary eyes. She left the room with the feeling of having rebuilt everything that had once been demolished. She got a job at an architecture firm focused on social projects. It wasn't Ethan's award-winning firm, but it was a space where her voice had weight. She bought a used bicycle. She rode Mateo to school. On Saturdays, they frequented the same corner ice cream parlor. She always ordered vanilla. He, mint chocolate chip. It was the only fixed habit of the week. The ritual of remembering that life also needed sweetness. And so, with small, dignified steps, Clara got there. A firm woman, mother of a child who smiled with his whole body. An admired professional, owner of her own story. She won, and she didn't need anyone to see it for it to be true. But now someone saw the return, stepping onto her ground. The image of the boy wouldn't leave Ethan's mind, so sharp it hurt. The features, the gait, the attentive silence he himself had at 5. The eyes. God. The eyes. It was as if time had folded in on itself and given Ethan back the mirror of a past he never lived. But that was now looking at him on the streets of San Francisco, with an relentless naturalness. It wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't projection. It was the truth. In the days following the fleeting encounter, Ethan tried to convince himself that he didn't need to know more. He tried, because he knew what would come next. Guilt, fear, shame. But he failed. In his office, he drew lines on blueprints that led nowhere. At night, he read reports he didn't retain. He started sentences and left them unfinished. When someone asked if he was okay, he automatically replied with a "clear." But inside, everything was noise. He hired someone discreet to investigate. He asked them to track Clara, but without invading, without causing a scandal. 2 days later, he received an envelope in hand. Oakland, Piedmont Avenue neighborhood. Her mother's name as the apartment renter. The boy's school. A first semester report card. Registration photo. Name, Mateo Aranda. He didn't carry his last name, but the face was enough. Ethan sat there, the document on the table, like someone looking at the file of a life he never participated in. And with that, the inevitable question. What would he do with it? He called his chauffeur, asked him to prepare the car for a trip. "I need time to think," he said. But what he wanted, deep down, was time to undo. The trip to Oakland was long, though short in miles. The car felt smaller, the air denser. He didn't speak during the 4-hour drive. He only watched the landscape change with an immobile face. He thought about Clara, the courage she had to disappear, the courage he never had to be different. He arrived at the address. A discreet street, low buildings, kids playing on the sidewalk. He got out slowly, his hands clammy. He climbed the steps with silent steps. The doorbell was simple. Round. He rang it once. And waited. When the door opened, the image before him disarmed him. Clara. Her hair shorter, her face more mature. But the eyes, the same. Intense. Clear. Strong. She didn't seem surprised. She looked at him like someone who was already expecting him. Like someone who already knew this moment would come one day. "Ethan," she said. Without emotion. He didn't answer immediately. He just looked at her as if he still couldn't believe she was there. Real? Alive? Unreachable? "He's my son, isn't he?" The question came out like a stone. There was no accusatory tone, only truth, and an old fear mixed with a new one. Clara didn't look away. She didn't move. She just took a deep breath. Firm. "Yes, Mateo is your son, but he is my world." The words fell between them like a verdict. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence grew louder. The sound of the street in the background. A dog barking. A ball bouncing on the asphalt. Everything seemed distant, as if they were isolated inside a thick pane of glass. Ethan tried to organize a thought, but his body spoke first. His hands trembled, his throat dry. The weight in his chest. He didn't know if he could enter. He didn't know if he should. "Why didn't you tell me?" But there was a weariness there that hadn't existed before. "Do you remember what you told me a year before it all ended? If you ever get pregnant, and we split, I will take that child from you. The Coles have power. Never forget that." Ethan closed his eyes. He remembered. The phrase was real. He said it in anger. On any night. And he never thought she would take it seriously. "Clara, You don't need to explain yourself," she interrupted him, with a gentle but firm gesture. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because he needs me, the whole. And I could only be whole away from you." The words were like clean blades. There were no shouts, no tears, but every syllable carried the pain of years. "Can I see him?" She hesitated for this first time. Her eyes flickered. Her body moved slightly. "He's at the park with my mother. He'll be back in half an hour. You can see him, but don't confuse things." "What things?" She looked at him deeply and replied, "You can be a father, but I am everything he knows, and I won't allow that to change." Ethan nodded. His gaze dropped. There was no room for dispute there. Only one possible path, to enter the other's territory with respect. And he, finally, was ready to tread carefully. And in that moment, standing on the threshold that had been closed to him for so long, Ethan felt what he had never truly felt. Guilt. Not the theatrical performative guilt, but the guilt that hurts, because it recognizes, that burns because it's true, that falls silent because it knows it was wrong. Clara stepped aside, making room for him to enter. And just like that, without rituals, without hugs, without promises, the story began to reopen. Final reflection. The price of presence. Ethan entered Clara's apartment with the same feeling of invading a sanctuary. It was a small space, modest, but clean. Alive. The furniture didn't match, but every object seemed to have been placed there with an intimate purpose. There were children's drawings taped to the refrigerator, a plant on the windowsill, a crooked lamp next to a worn armchair, and in the center of it all, the subtle scent of lavender, the same one she used on her pillow when they still slept together, although now it seemed like a different perfume. More mature, more her own. Ethan saw what Clara meant. The future wasn't about redemption. It was about responsibility. And beside that woman he once loved, he finally understood that she wasn't just the mother of his son. She was unbreakable. And that he could never achieve. He understood it. Not in the arrogant way of one who finally understands a woman, but as one who, after a long time, recognizes the exact void he left. And the hardest thing to accept was that Clara was no longer in that void. She filled it alone, with silence, with struggle, with her own hands, with the precise architecture of one who learned to build from the rubble. He saw it now, in every one of her gestures, in the way she organized Matteo's life with a firm and loving routine, in the way she spoke with the parents of his schoolmates with a confident voice, unafraid of judgment, in the way she wore simple clothes that looked tailor-made, as if her body had learned to fit exactly where it wanted to. Clara flourished, and he was only a spectator. Ethan began to accompany Matteo more often. He took his son to the park on alternating Saturdays. Clara's mother supervised him with an eagle eye, never hostile, but always watchful. Clara trusted her instinct. It was like an invisible net of protection. The boy would never be completely alone with Ethan. There would always be a watchful eye nearby, and Ethan never complained about it. He accepted it, because he knew he had no ibwat to ask for more than that. One morning, after dropping Matteo off at school, Ethan saw Clara across the street. She was wearing a blue skirt, low heels, a folder under her arm, and a cup of coffee in her hand. She was talking on the phone, concentrated, walking fast. She was so clear, so solid in that instant, that Ethan stopped to watch. He saw a woman he didn't know, a woman that time had sculpted with precision. She crossed the street, hung up the phone, and saw him. She stopped in front of him. Her eyes weren't cold. They were serene, like someone who no longer expects anything, and precisely because of that, doesn't need to protect herself. "Do you need something?" she asked simply. "No," he replied, hesitant. I was going to say you look different. I'm alive. That's it. And you're learning to look." She walked past without waiting for an answer, and that resonated in him as a reminder. There are pains that don't heal. They transform. And Clara transformed. Later that same day, Ethan opened his laptop and searched her name. He found an article. Clara Aranda, architect and urban planner, winner of a regional award for a sustainable social housing project. The text spoke of her with reverence. It mentioned her education, her trajectory, her focus on vulnerable communities, without influential surnames, without inheritance. Everything was merit. Every paragraph was a confirmation of what he was already beginning to accept. Clara didn't just survive. She became someone else. And him? He remained rich. He continued signing projects, accumulating awards, attending gala dinners. But everything he carried in his pockets, the contacts, the promises, the contracts, now seemed lighter than a dry leaf compared to the concrete weight of the presence that Clara earned with her own story. The coal power? Powerless here. Because Clara was no longer accessible through influence. She could not be bent by surnames. She was not for sale. Ethan understood, not because he wanted to, but because he had no choice. And looking at Matteo, Watching him grow with the tenderness of one who was loved unconditionally, he understood that everything Clara built, the balance, the clarity, the unconditional love, is not bought. It is not inherited. It is only earned. And he was too late. Interactive question. Now tell me, if you were in Clara's place, would you have done the same? Would you have left without telling him about the pregnancy? Comment below. I genuinely want to know what you would do, and if this story touched you in any way, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. See you in the next story. Part 2. The Architecture of Redemption. We are back with the highly requested continuation. If you thought Ethan Cole's realization was the end, you were wrong. The real story is about what a powerful man does when he realizes his power means nothing compared to the quiet strength of the woman he betrayed. If you're rooting for Ethan to finally step up, give this video a thumbs up. The new blueprint. Responsibility, not control. Ethan left Clara's small apartment that day, carrying a burden heavier than any financial loss, the weight of his own failure. The realization that Clara had built a life, a superior life, without him, was a profound shock to his system. He returned to San Francisco, but the towering glass office of Cole & Associates now felt cold, sterile, and meaningless. He understood that he couldn't simply buy his way back into Mateo's life, nor could he purchase Clara's forgiveness. His redemption required a completely different kind of architecture, one built on service, transparency, and respect. The first thing Ethan did was not about Clara, but about cleaning his own foundation. He severed ties with several influential but morally questionable partners who had been the source of his father's and his own arrogance. He quietly restructured his firm, redirecting a significant portion of its resources toward a new social impact division. He knew where to start. Clara's thesis. He found the public records of her award-winning sustainable housing project for single mothers. It was brilliant, practical, and desperately needed funding. He did not call her. He did not send an email. He chose the slow, respectful approach. He contacted the NGO where Clara worked, presenting himself strictly as an interested investor and architect, seeking to fund a pilot program in Oakland. He used his connections to streamline permits and secure a large, suitable plot of land, all while meticulously hiding his identity as the ultimate benefactor. He was simply an anonymous resource, clearing the bureaucratic weeds so Clara's vision could grow. An unexpected partnership. 3 months later, Clara called him. Her voice, usually serene, was tinged with disbelief. "Ethan," she began, formal and reserved. "I just received confirmation for the Oakland pilot project. It's fully funded, and the land acquisition is complete. It's moving faster than anything I've ever seen. The anonymous donor is demanding we adhere strictly to the original design, my design. Do you know anything about this?" Ethan leaned back in his leather chair, a genuine, unpracticed smile touching his lips for the first time in years. "I know of the project. It's an exceptional piece of work, Clara. It deserves to be built." "It's more than deserved. It's a miracle," she countered. The paperwork mentions a consulting architect from an undisclosed firm who advocated fiercely for the design's integrity. They insisted the project lead, Clara Aranda, must have full creative control. "Was that you?" Ethan sighed, knowing he couldn't lie. "The person they spoke to was me. It was the least I could do, considering my firm, my family, has always built for the privileged. Your work is what architecture should be." Clara was silent for a long moment. It wasn't the silence of fear, but of processing. "You used your power to clear a path, not to block one," she finally said. "That's a new architecture for you, Ethan." "It's a necessary one," he admitted. This led to an unspoken agreement. Ethan never mentioned Mateo in relation to the project. Clara never asked for more funding. They began meeting regularly, but strictly on professional grounds: site visits, engineering reviews, and municipal presentations. Ethan wore simple field boots instead of his expensive Italian loafers. He listened more than he spoke. He saw Clara in her element, sharp, decisive, and commanding the respect of seasoned contractors. She wasn't just surviving. She was creating impact, building the bridge to Matteo. The professional collaboration naturally softened the edges of their personal divide. Seeing Ethan consistently prioritize her mission slowly allowed him small increases in his time with Matteo. It started with supervised park visits, then transitioned to him dropping Matteo off at his Oakland school. Ethan never overstepped. He brought simple gifts, like rare geology books or a high-quality set of colored pencils. He never talked about money or the past. He simply talked about Matteo's world, the texture of the soil in the playground, the mechanics of the cable car system, the logic behind the universe. Matteo, in turn, began to trust this new, quiet man. He didn't see the CEO. He saw the person who knew how to draw cool bridges and could explain why the Golden Gate Bridge was red and not gold. One Saturday, while they were at the local hardware store buying supplies for a birdhouse project, Matteo, looking at a bag of concrete mix, asked, "Dad, why do buildings need foundations?" Ethan knelt down, meeting his son's eyes. "Buildings need foundations, Matteo, because a foundation is what you lay down first. It's the strong, honest part that no one sees, but it has to hold up everything else: the walls, the roof, the windows. If the foundation is weak, the whole house will fall apart in a storm." Matteo nodded, understanding. "My house has a very strong foundation, right, Dad?" Ethan paused, a lump forming in his throat. He thought of Clara, the concrete she poured with her own hands, the silent strength she endured. "Yes, Matteo, your house has the strongest foundation I have ever seen. Your mother built it to last forever." Interactive. Question: Ethan is finally starting to understand that true strength is quiet. What do you think is the biggest lesson he has learned from watching Clara build her life from the rubble? Tell us your thought in the comments. The final foundation. A year after the emotional confrontation, the social housing project was nearing completion. On the dedication day, Clara stood at the podium. She gave a powerful speech about dignity, self-sufficiency, and the importance of having a safe place to land after a storm. Ethan stood at the back of the crowd, watching. He saw Matteo, nestled close to Clara's mother, clapping fiercely. He saw Clara, radiating the quiet confidence of a true leader. At the reception, Clara walked over to him, holding a champagne flute. "The board insisted on recognizing the anonymous donor," she said, her eyes challenging him. "They wanted a plaque, a dedication ceremony. I told them no. But I think you should know, the first building in the complex, the community center, is officially named the Aranda Center." Ethan's eyes widened. "Clara, that's incredible. You deserve that." The lead donor finally conceded, but they left a condition. She continued, a slight, genuine smile finally reaching her eyes. They insisted that the dedication plaque for the entire project state, built upon a foundation of integrity and commitment. They said it was a non-negotiable term. Ethan nodded, recognizing his own words from his past business philosophy, now redefined by her reality. "I can live with that." She set her glass down, her voice low and intimate. "Ethan, you never asked for anything. You just gave. You gave Matteo time, and you gave me respect. That's more than any inheritance." She paused, then handed him a set of keys. Simple, silver fobs. "My mother is moving into the community complex's dedicated family unit. Matteo and I are staying in our small apartment in Oakland. These are the keys to the new playground, Matteo wants you to help him finish building the final foundation for the swing set tomorrow morning. He says you're better at mixing concrete than anyone he knows. Ethan looked at the keys. Not the ornate bronze key of their past, but simple silver fobs that smelled faintly of new metal and possibility. A key to the simple, hard work of being present. "I'll be there," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. He understood. He didn't get Clara back, not in the romantic sense. He earned something better, a clean slate, a shared purpose, and a small, hard-won place in his son's real world. His former self, the arrogant heir, had chased a kingdom. His current self, the quiet, humble father, was content with a single, perfectly poured foundation. He looked across the lot, where Matteo was running toward him, waving an orange flag. He had finally found his true architecture, meaningful conclusion, and call to action. This story of Ethan Cole and Clara Aranda teaches us that true power lies not in controlling what you have, but in humbly serving what you lost. Ethan realized his colossal wealth was nothing compared to Clara's courage, and his redemption began only when he learned to build according to her blueprints, not his own. Clara's silence was her shield, her struggle was her foundation, and in the end, her integrity became the most powerful force in the room. What do you think of Ethan's final act of redemption? Do you believe he truly changed, or is he simply trying to buy his son's love in a more sophisticated way? Let us know your honest opinion in the comments below. If you loved this powerful sequel, like the video and subscribe for more stories of profound human transformation. Check out the video appearing on your screen now for another amazing tale. Part 3. The Ultimate Test of Integrity. The story is far from over. Just when Ethan and Clara thought they had found their peace, a final, ruthless challenge arrives from the very past they tried to escape. This time, the battle isn't for love, but for the soul of the Cole legacy. Do you think Ethan can resist the power of his family name one last time? Let me know your prediction in the comments below. Subscribe and hit the bell to see if your prediction is right. The return of the matriarch. 6 months after the dedication of the Aranda Center, the new rhythm of life was firm. Shared co-parenting, professional respect, and a quiet, budding affection between Ethan and Clara. An affection built on shared purpose rather than past passion. However, the silence from the Cole family matriarch, Mrs. Sterling, was not a sign of peace, but of plotting. One crisp afternoon, Ethan received a call to an urgent meeting at the family's private club in Nob Hill. He walked into the reserved salon to find his mother, impeccable and severe as ever, seated across from the family's senior counsel. But the biggest surprise was the large, leather-bound folder on the table. "Ethan, your father's health has deteriorated rapidly. The doctors give him 6 months at best," Mrs. Sterling stated, bypassing all pleasantries. The family trust requires a seamless transition of power. She tapped the folder. "This is the official deed to Cole and Associates, the controlling shares of the entire Cole global real estate empire, and the keys to the chairmanship of the family trust." Ethan stared at the fortune before him, the very kingdom he had renounced. "I thought my sister Sophia was the designated successor." "Sophia wants to breed horses in Wyoming," Mrs. Sterling scoffed. "She lacks the ruthlessness required. You, Ethan, have always possessed the architect's vision and the Cole ambition. You merely misdirected it. It's time to come home, son. The power you gave up is waiting for you." The power was intoxicating. It was everything he'd trained for, everything he'd once desired. With this, he could fund all of Clara's projects tenfold, shield Matteo from all future worries, and change the world's landscape overnight. But the condition, unspoken yet palpable, hung heavy in the air. "And what about my social impact division? What about the Aranda Center?" Ethan asked, his voice steady. Mrs. Sterling's face tightened. Charity is best left to foundations, not to the controlling entity. You will dissolve that frivolous division, and you will cease this public co-parenting farce with that Aranda woman. The Cole heir does not build playgrounds with ex-secretaries. The ultimatum was clear: the crown or the conscience. The architect's counter-proposal. Ethan walked out of the club with the folder in his hands, feeling the cold weight of the empire. He didn't drive to his office. He drove to the Aranda Center. He found Clara in the community center's sunny kitchen, reviewing blueprints while Matteo drew silently beside her. He placed the imposing folder on the simple wooden table. My mother just offered me everything. The chairmanship, the empire, the full power of the Cole name, he stated, his eyes locking onto hers. The condition is that I dissolve the social impact division and cut all non-essential ties to you and Matteo. Clara didn't flinch. She simply finished marking a dimension on her blueprint, then looked up. Her eyes were serene, without judgment, almost expectant. And what did you say, Ethan? I told her I needed time to consider the best use of the assets, he replied. He wasn't lying. He had a plan, one that risked everything. I only need one thing from you, Clara: your trust and your full commitment to a plan that will burn my world down, but will solidify yours. Clara slid the folder back across the table. You have my trust, Ethan. I already watched you burn your world down for the right reasons once. Show me the new blueprint. The next day, Ethan walked back into the private club. Mrs. Sterling was waiting, flanked by lawyers. I accept the chairmanship and the power, Ethan announced, his voice ringing with the authority they demanded. But there is a condition from my end. He laid out a contract. It was meticulously drafted, using every legal loophole he knew. I will take the reins, but the Cole Trust will immediately endow the Aranda Foundation with a non-revocable, legally untouchable fund. This fund will be solely managed by Clara Aranda and her board, dedicated to building social housing and urban renewal projects, operating entirely outside of the Cole global structure. It will be the single largest philanthropic donation in the family's history, and it will be non-negotiable. Mrs. Sterling was furious. You are giving away family money to that little project. I am investing in the family's future legacy, Mother. Unlike you, I understand that the true power of the Cole name should lie in its integrity and its service, not its ruthlessness. I will take the power, but I will use it to support the foundation that embodies the principles I believe in. This is the new Cole legacy, and it begins now, with the Aranda Foundation. Take it or leave it, but know this: if you refuse, the entire firm will see the internal documents detailing your past attempts to illegally separate me from my son. I will take the power, or I will take the truth. Your choice. Facing the certain public and legal ruin that Ethan held in his hands, a ruin far greater than an uncomfortable charitable donation, Mrs. Sterling's resolve finally crumbled. She signed. Her hand trembled, not with weakness, but with suppressed fury at her defeat. A new foundation, a new love. Ethan took the control, but he used it for good. Within a year, he had implemented his vision. Cole Global focused on sustainable urban development, and the Aranda Foundation became the standard-bearer for compassionate architecture. On a rainy Saturday, after dropping Matteo off at a friend's house, Ethan and Clara found themselves standing in the empty, original Aranda Center Community Hall. They were both soaked, laughing at the chaos of the day. You won, Ethan, Clara said softly, looking up at him. You took the crown, but you made it serve the conscience. I never thought I would see that day. I didn't win, Clara. We built a foundation that finally holds, he corrected, reaching out and gently touching her cheek. You taught me that integrity is the only material that doesn't crack under pressure. He didn't pull out a diamond ring. He didn't offer a grand transactional gesture. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn piece of tracing paper, the same sketch of the project they designed together in their first month of marriage, the one she carried that day she left. I want to build this now, Clara, not a building for the firm, but a home for us, designed by us, built on honesty. No secrets, no conditions, just a foundation of truth. Clara's eyes welled up. She didn't cry then, but she did now. Not from pain, but from the realization that the old Ethan was finally, completely gone. The design is perfect, she whispered, and the site is exactly where we stand. They kissed, not with the urgency of their lost youth, but with the quiet, profound promise of two architects finally ready to build their shared, authentic life. The story of Ethan and Clara became a legend, a testament to the fact that it takes real power to let go of control, and that the strongest legacy is not measured in wealth, but in the love and quiet, honest presence you leave behind. Final call to action. What kind of name should Ethan and Clara give to their new home, symbolizing both their past betrayal and their future unity? Share your creative name ideas in the comments below. If this story inspired you to believe in second chances and true transformation, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us tell more stories that move and inspire.